Hello, and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, and those are 6 thoughts about reading, writing, or science fiction. So happy to be here this morning, and let's dive in for today. Number 1, I shared that I had finished again my book Firmament last month, and that is, the 7th book in the Firmament series. So really excited to hopefully get that out this year. There's still plenty of time, so should be able to do that. And I talked to my husband last night about reading it to him soon so I can get his feedback on it. Not sure who all I can get to be beta readers, but I know for sure that I want him to be one of them, and I really like reading my work aloud to him so I can see his reactions sort of more in real time. But he has great story sense. He actually has told me he loved writing as a kid, and whenever I've shared my work with him, he has just really good insight on just story and details that could work better or things that might be off. Like, he's really good at that. And he also does that, if we watch things together, he is good at picking up on story beats and pointing out where things don't work and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be really valuable. And this is the first time I've actually read something to him before. A novel. I've read him shorter stories before I published them, and he's given me really good and helpful feedback. But so far, I've only published a couple of novels since we've been together, and I just hadn't gotten around to reading those to him before I published them. But this time I really wanted to, because I really think he can help me a lot with feedback on it. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll see what he thinks. But going to start doing that soon. So number 2, I mentioned last week that I want to start working on the next Firmament book soon, and I announced the title, Humanoid, book 8, and been trying to decide when I should start it, because I do like to have a little break between projects. I've found the past year or so that works really well for me, but not too long of a break, because then I just have more trouble getting back into it. So I think I'm going to start next week. So our anniversary is on Friday, 5 years, and we're sending the kids to Grandma and Grandpa's and having a little staycation for the weekend. And so I'm thinking I'm going to get through that, and then I'm going to get to work on this next book. And I don't know how long a deadline I'm going to give myself. Might go for like a month and a half. Not trying to do another nano here, but I do want to make some consistent progress and get through it and not be in the same position I was with Eleftheria, where it took me literally years to finish it. So excited to start working on that, and I will keep you all updated on the progress. So number 3, I mentioned last week also that I had finished reading the book Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle aloud to my kids, and now I've been trying to find another read aloud for them. It's just something that falls in that sweet spot where, it's not just a picture book, it's kind of a little bit more prolonged, but also they're still really little, and it needs to be pretty simple and just for them to be able to understand and especially appreciate it. And I've been thinking, what might work. I, of course, want to read Narnia to them, but I really don't think they would have any appreciation for that yet. So many books that I really want to read to them, and I'm not sure what they would really appreciate at this point. So just trying to think about that. I'm considering, we've started watching the Little House on the Prairie show together in the afternoons, and they're not always super into it, but they like it because it's 3 sisters just like them. And also sometimes they'll ask me about what's going on, or they'll comment, or they'll even remember things from past episodes sometimes, and I'll explain to them as we go along what's happening. So I thought about reading them the Little House books, especially since the early ones, the kids in them are pretty little, and so I don't know. I'm thinking about that, but I'm not sure if that's the right fit for them yet. So I'm probably overthinking it. And probably I know that them reading and being read to some things that are a little above their comprehension, it can be good for them. But yeah, I'm a chronic overthinker. And part of my excitement at sharing so many of my favorite childhood books with them is wanting them to appreciate it. And so I don't want to jump the gun just because I'm too eager to share it with them. I want them to have a really good experience. So anyway, I'm sure I'm overthinking it. Another one I've thought of reading to them is Five Children and It, because that's a really fun, really funny one. But again, I'm just not sure if they would understand what was happening in it. I mean, they're only 2 and 3, so I don't know, but I'll keep thinking about it, try to find something for them, because I really did enjoy reading the last one aloud to them, and I do think they enjoyed it also. So number 4, I have been really working hard on my reading goal for the year. So my official goal is 50 books, but I also have a secret higher goal that I'm not sharing for the moment. But I'm reading a lot, let's just say. And so I do a mixture of all formats. My favorite way to read books is, of course, just like a hard copy in your hand where you can turn the pages, see how much progress you've made physically. I just think that's the best way to read a book and always will be. But I occasionally do ebooks, which is my least favorite, just because sometimes that's the best way for me to get a hold of the book. If that's the only copy the library has, or if that's what's going to be cheapest on Amazon or whatever. So I occasionally do ebooks. I have one right now. And I also do a lot of audiobooks, which for me falls somewhere in the middle. I know a lot of people don't enjoy listening to audiobooks or are not able to focus on them, but it works really well for me. And even if I only listen to a little at a time because I'm constantly having to pause and deal with my kids, still gets me through a lot of books, because I can just listen even just 10 minutes while I'm folding laundry here and there. Surprisingly, that can get you through a lot. So one thing that I have found interesting, though, is when it comes to discussing reading goals with people, there are a lot of people who feel strongly, apparently, that audiobooks shouldn't count when you're listing books that you've read. And I have been so confused by this. I've seen the discussion come up among a lot of readers about should they count or not. And I have to say, I do not understand this viewpoint at all. Because it's still the same book. I mean, you're literally taking in all the exact information. Now, I do believe that it is good to physically read books also, because I think it is good for your brain in a different way than listening is. I mean, they both use different parts of your brain. And I do think, though, that listening and taking in information is a valuable skill too. But I definitely think it's valuable to have a real book. Like I said, turn the pages, read the words on the page, and it's good for you. But I mean, again, it's the same exact information that you're still taking into your mind by listening to it. So I am just perplexed by this. Do not agree with that mindset. And I 100% count all audiobooks in my reading goal, and I always will. Unless I can't foresee that changing, let's just say that. But yes, it's just been interesting to see that discussion come up several times lately when it's nothing I'd ever even thought about before. So along those lines, number 5, currently reading, I am in the middle of a few things right now, but the audiobook I'm reading is Divergent by Veronica Roth, and I have read it before. I actually first saw the movie when it came out, and then I read the book, the actual physical pages book, and absolutely loved it. I just think that I feel like it's overlooked among, there's a lot of young adult dystopia series. Obviously, The Hunger Games gets most of the credit, which I haven't read that yet, to be fair. But Maze Runner, which those books are absolutely horrible. But there's a lot of them, and as far as the ones that I've read, Divergent is my favorite. And I'm also, really impressed that the author was young, and if I recall correctly, I believe that she was homeschooled. I could be wrong about that, but I'm very inspired by, young writers that are successful, obviously. And I just really enjoyed those books. However, I've never gotten around to reading the last one. I saw the last movie and it was no good. But I've heard that, I mean, for one thing, it was only half of the book and they were going to go back and do the last half and they never did. But also, I've heard that it was a lot different. So I've always meant to go back and read that last book, but when I finally got around to it, I had forgotten a lot of what went on in the first two books. So I've been wanting to reread them, just hadn't gotten around to it, and then saw that they were on the Hoopla app, which is where I get a lot of my audiobooks, and so decided to give them another listen, or another read, a first-time listen, I guess. And I've just been really enjoying it all over again. And what's interesting too is it's first-person present tense, which is not my favorite. I generally do not like that style of writing. It just doesn't feel natural to me. I'm not really sure why. I know the goal would be that it would feel more natural because you should, in theory, be closest to the character and the action that way, but it just doesn't really work very well for me. Even though it's very trendy the last few years, I feel like. But despite that, I really enjoy them. Really feel that they're well written. A lot of these young adult books and young adult dystopias, the emotions can be kind of over the top and not feel very realistic. And some of the motivations I've found don't always make total sense. Like, I don't know, they just can feel a little immature, but I don't feel that way about these. I feel like they feel very real. The characters feel real. The plot points seem good to me, like they're I don't know, there's just things that, I wouldn't predict, which I tend to predict a lot of plots of things because I've read so much and studied story structure so much, and so when I can't predict things, it's really cool. So anyway, I don't know, I'm enjoying it, really looking forward to finally reading the last one, and I think it's good for me to read young adult literature since that's a lot of what I write. So yeah, really enjoying these. And then number 6, kind of moving on a similar topic, it has got me thinking, reading this again, reading Divergent again, has got me thinking again about dystopia and why that is so popular, and especially, it had such a boom of popularity for a few years there, which I think maybe has kind of died down a little bit, but dystopia has been more or less popular for a long time before that. You have 1984, obviously, Brave New World, and then even, recent but not as recent books like The Giver. And so anyway, it's something that clearly draws people. And back when I was writing my young adult dystopia, Implant, I did a lot of thinking and wrote some articles about why that is, why that draws people so much. And it got me thinking that basically what a dystopia is, it's always a utopia gone wrong. Like what's always has happened is that society has changed in some way that they think is going to be perfect, or eradicate war or whatever they're trying to do. They think this is going to be a utopia, and it never really works quite as planned. There's always oppression, there's always so many major problems that were not foreseen. And so, but what you don't see is a lot of successful utopias. In fact, I can't really think of any, except there are things like, the United Federation of Planets, allegedly in Star Trek, I think is supposed to be kind of utopia, but even there, they have to keep coming up with problems because if something is too perfect, for one thing, it does not make a good story. Obviously, you have to have conflict, or there's no story. Story is literally conflict and, striving to overcome and things like that. But also, I think it just, no matter what people want to believe about the possibility of a utopia, when it comes down to it, people know that that is not a reality. And they know that it just in their hearts, it is not going to feel real to us, because we know, despite what we might want to think or say we think, we know that we live in a fallen world, and that people are corrupt, and that power corrupts, and that people are sinful, and the world is fallen. Like, it is not going to be perfect, and if people try to make it perfect, it's always going to become corrupt, and there's always going to be problems with any man-made system, whether it's well-intentioned or not. And so I think that just feels very real to people, and they can see echoes of our